Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields Milburn. Ryan Nicodemus is on vacation this week, but don't worry. We're here with Malabama and TK Coleman and the rest of our team. Coming up today on this free public minimal episode, we're joined by a very funny man. The comedian Jamie Kilstein is here, and we're talking to a listener about quitting minimalism. We also have an outstanding lightning round question about letting go of birthday gifts. We have a wonderful listener tip and added value segment for you. But you can check out the full 2-hour maximal edition of episode 353, where we answer 4 times the questions and we dive deep into 7 simple living segments. We also have Jamie apologize to all of his ex-girlfriends, but especially one in particular. So if you're watching this, you got to check out that maximal episode.
Damn it. I always love you. Okay.
That private podcast episode is out right now at theminimalists.com/private. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free, because advertisements suck. Malabama, who's our first question from today?
Our first question comes from Emily in Manhattan, Kansas.
I always find myself caught off guard when somebody says they are, quote unquote, quitting minimalism. And I'm wondering, what do you guys think when you hear someone say that?
It sounds like me. I just moved and I had to buy a ton of furniture. And I was like, I'm going to be a minimalist, but I'd never been to the store Home Goods before. And I was like, I need a mat for every room. And I bought so many things. And so I feel like I relapsed on giving up minimalism last week. And I apologize to everybody.
Well, let's start there, because you know what's funny is when I got this question, I did realize how many videos I've seen within the last year or so on YouTube and other places. And I think part of this phenomenon is people looking for more clicks. And so they're saying,
yes,
I'm quitting minimalism, but they're not really. You go watch the videos and they're like, well, not really. And so here's my analogy. And TK, you tell me what you think about this. So a carpenter might quit carpentry, but they may not stop using their hammer for the rest of their lives. I look at minimalism more like a tool than a destination. It's not about being a minimalist so much as it's about using minimalism, simplifying my life, being intentional with my life, using that as a tool to live more meaningfully.
Yeah, you don't have to like eternal sunshine your hammer or your, the documentary about minimalism. I think you're right about clickbait. I remember when I was vegan, there were so many videos blowing up of like, I'm an ex-vegan. And it's pretty much, if there is a trend that seems to be helping people, you will get a popular YouTube video if you go, I don't like this popular thing. And then everyone clicks it. Also, minimalism, veganism, Buddha, any practice is hard. And so these YouTube videos blow up because you're kind of always longing to hear, I know I was like when I was vegan, and I'm not vegan anymore and I feel good, blah, blah, blah. But when I was vegan and I was struggling, I always wanted to see a video pop up my YouTube feed of just some like hot muscular dude be like, I gave up veganism and now like I can't stop getting laid. And I'd be like, why? And it was mainly just because I didn't want to do the hard thing anymore. But I think what you're talking about is really important. So I had this moment this week where I went to visit a bunch of people who were friends of Ram Dass and Alan Watts and all these spiritual people. And I felt like I was sort of losing my way spiritually. And I was like, what do I need? Do I need a practice? Do I need an altar? Like, do I say Hare Krishna? Like, what am I supposed to do? And the more they were asking me about my life and where I am with it, I realized that I have been using spirituality in my life. I have been looking at people with kindness or with love. I have been catching myself when I'm starting to completely mentally spiral and be like, hey, Jamie, are you garbage? And I'm like, it's 8 a.m. But I'll catch myself and be like, hey, this isn't real. This is a pattern. This is a habit. And so even though I wasn't doing a practice, and I don't know what a minimalist practice looks like, right? Like, yeah, bowing down to like your guys' Netflix documentary. Maybe they moved like me, right? Like I moved, I had to buy a bunch of new stuff. That doesn't mean that now suddenly I'm just like, I must have all of the things and have turned into some gluttonous, capitalist and used to collect. I'm still a minimalist. I just needed some mats for my place.
Yeah, I feel the same way. When I moved recently, I had to buy some new things that were appropriate for my new home. And sometimes what we do is we overcorrect. We'll buy a thing.
Yes.
And we're gonna, and later in this private podcast episode, we're gonna talk about your Roomba. And
I returned it. I panicked. Okay, yes, we have to talk about
we'll
it.
talk about that later because we have this segment called Amass It or Trash It.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, here's what I'll say though, Jamie. Sometimes what we do is we leave something thinking that thing was the problem when it was never the problem at all. You moved to Tucson when you left LA. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. What's funny is I'm so scared my most recent ex is going to listen to this podcast because she's a fan, but now we're going to go one ex before her to talk about that, which I didn't see coming. What a surprise of nightmares. Okay, so I was dating this girl in LA and we clearly settled for each other. Like she was fine. She was fine. And I was fine. And I even remember, because we were both, it was the only girl I ever dated from a dating site. And she was like, I'm so glad you're not a creep. And I was like, bar exceeded. Like, I guess that's all I had to do, right? So I was like, great, cool. And it very clearly wasn't working, but I think I was so tired of the girls I was going on dates with. She was so tired of these creepy dudes. And I'm getting older now. I just turned 40. So it's kind of like, all right. I think a lot of people do this. You're like, this is the best it's going to get. Because my standards were so low, not even for women, my standards were so low for myself and what I deserved and what I thought I deserved. And so when we weren't working, we moved to Arizona because instead of saying, hey, maybe we ignored some red flags and maybe we were just, good for a couple months to show each other we deserve more and be kind to each other and stuff like that. Instead, we were like, no, you know what? It was probably LA's fault. We should leave the entire state of California. That'll fix the relationship. And then we moved to Arizona and then we broke up a couple months later. We were just miserable in the mountains instead of miserable in the valley.
And so what I'm seeing here is sometimes you try to run away from the thing and it simply follows you because you're clinging to something else.
Yeah.
TK, let's bring this home for Emily. So she's seeing this trend of everyone quitting minimalism because it's now minimalism was trendy when our Netflix documentary came out in 2016 and it's not the cool thing for them anymore. And so they're giving up their hammer because I'm done with this. I don't ever want to use a hammer ever again. Talk to me, TK.
For all of those who are quitting minimalism, good. Because now you can just get on with the business of living, which is what minimalism and any other meaningful ism is actually about. The truest sign of mastery is when you can do whatever you need to do without having to identify who you are with what it is you do. And the true sign of a novice is that label means everything. When you're first learning how to drive, you tell everybody you know, I'm in driver's ed. I'm going to get my license. You're talking about driving more than you're actually doing it. But after you've learned how to drive and you've been doing it for a few years, you hardly ever talk about your status as a driver. That's part of the backdrop to just you going where you need to go. It's true when people learn how to meditate, when they start a new diet, they talk about it all the time. I'm into meditation now. I'm into the keto diet now. But once you take what's meaningful and you internalize it and it becomes a part of your lifestyle, you drop the label and you just get on with the business of living a healthy life regardless of what it's called. So it doesn't matter if you're quitting minimalism, just don't ever quit doing what's best for you, doing what makes you healthy.
I love that. I mean, I did drive very well over here from Santa Monica. I was using my blinker. I made good time. That's such a good point. I mean, that's the joke about vegans or CrossFit and I'm so guilty of it. And partly I do it too to hold myself accountable because I think I'm going to walk away from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, guys, I stopped watching porn and this is the first time I've told anybody and now all of you know. And so if you hear me being like, man, I love porn. No, yell at me. But like, I wanted to tweet about it. And I wanted just to be like, the world, I am doing this good thing. And like, it's kind of virtue signaling, but it's also like, I want to keep doing it. I want to hold myself accountable.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm so guilty of that. The second I touch a book on Buddhism, I am just launching to everybody that I'm like, well, it's like Buddha said. Yeah, when Buddha was sitting under the tree, you know what I love? Buddha. Like, and it's just, I don't stop doing it.
Well, I want to affirm that too, because I think that's a good thing, because that's part of the process of reinforcing this new belief system or this new set of rituals that we're trying out and that we're trying to make fit into our lives. I call it new convert syndrome. The new convert is the person that's least grounded in their faith. And so they need to talk about it explicitly because they're wrestling with it, they're processing, they're seeing how they do this and how they do that. But after a while, when you warm up to it, you start to express whatever it is you believe in your actual behavior without feeling the need to make everything explicit or make sure everybody knows you're part of that label. So it is part of the learning process. But once you've mastered it, you can move from that stage of conscious competence to unconscious competence.
The way I talk about comedy, the way I talk about jujitsu now compared to when I started, it's just like I will lie to people and say I'm not a comedian just so I don't have to talk about it sometimes. What a great point, man.
Emily, here's what I'll tell you. If minimalism is too extreme for you and you don't like that particular ism, then just pick your own ism. Intentionalism, essentialism, living within your means ism.
Yep.
Simplism. I don't care what you call it. What we're talking about here is living meaningfully with less, getting the excess out of the way so we can focus on what's important. We're going to send you a copy of our book, Everything That Remains. Emily, it's a book about Ryan and I quitting our past lives, walking away from something that was no longer serving us. So if minimalism is serving you, wonderful. If simplifying your life is serving you, great. It shows how we started simplifying our lives. So if you enjoy our podcast, I think you'll enjoy the audiobook version of Everything That Remains. It's still our most popular book to date. Or if you want the book or the ebook version of Everything That Remains, we'll send that to you as well. It is time for the lightning round where we answer your text messages. You can text your questions, your comments, your eggplant emojis to 937-202-4654. Those texts literally go to Ryan's and my phones and eventually TK. We'll get him in on the action here as well. We respond to a lot of people just random throughout the day, but we also respond to some folks, here on the podcast. Looks like Lauren has a question for us.
How do you handle birthday gifts you don't want? I've tried to make creative suggestions, but my family still wants to give me physical gifts.
Now, Jamie, you'll recall during the lightning round, so we do our best to answer questions with a short, shareable, less than 140 character response.
Why are you pointing that towards me? Because I digress into a million different tangents about trees every time I try to answer a question? I'll try my best.
We call them minimal maxims. We put them in the show notes so you can copy and share our pithy answers on social media.
Mine's like thread 1 of 56.
Here's my pithy answer. Let's unpack it here. A gift is not a gift if you are not allowed to let it go. Here's something else pithy for you. A relationship is not loving if it's not honest. So here's the thing. How do you approach someone you don't want gifts from? You just tell them you don't want gifts. Because if you can't be honest with someone that you love, do you actually love them? Are you in a real relationship with someone? If you can't say, hey, I don't like that, that's not a relationship. That's an obligation. If you feel afraid of the person in your life, you're afraid of rejection, you're afraid of not being accepted, you're afraid of not being loved, that's not love. That's conditions, right? And so if someone's giving you a gift, why are they giving you a gift? It's because they want to add value to your life, and that's wonderful. So you can appreciate the gift, but once you get the gift, know that it is your gift to do whatever you want with it. You can donate it, you can sell it, you can put it on your mantle, you can wear it, you can choose to do nothing at all with it. That's totally fine. A gift is a gift, but once it's your gift, you do whatever you want with it. The reason they're doing it is because they think that gift giving is a love language. Well, that's nonsense. That's like saying Pig Latin is a romance language. We give gifts because we want to add value to someone's life. So it's not about the gift. It's about the adding value to your life. And if you're getting a gift and it's extracting value from your life, it's getting in the way of your life. That's not what the gift giver intended. They want you to feel joyous from that thing. So instead of just saying no, 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 say yes to something else. Here's the type of gift that I would get value from. Maybe it's just more time with you. Maybe it's a gift card to Applebee's, whatever it is. Probably not a gift card to Applebee's.
Watching you slowly second guess that in your head was so fun. You were like Applebee's, and then I just watched you go, what am I?
Oh, gross.
Hey, man, I met my wife at Applebee's.
Oh, Is that true?
This is true.
That's true, man.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Applebee's.
I love that. I was a TGI Fridays guy, but I love that.
Find a good woman at Applebee's, man. Okay. So it's a variation of yours. The right to give it away is part of the definition of a gift. If someone is truly giving you something, then part of what they have given you is the right to do whatever you want with that thing because it's now yours. A gift is a transferring of ownership, right? They bought it, they own what they paid for, and now they're transferring ownership to you. I'll tell you what you don't want to do, and this will get you in trouble. You don't want to get into the business of trying to convert someone to your religious beliefs about how they should spend their money and what they should do with gifts, because that's the business of trying to control people, and it's only going to lead to frustration. People are going to spend their money however they want to spend it. They're going to do what they want to do with gifts, however they want to do it. And if you try to control them, you're going to frustrate them and yourself. But here's what you can do. Here's what's within the realm of power for you. You can reject it, you can receive it, or you can redistribute it. You've got those three options. And that gives you all the power you need. When someone gives you a gift and you don't like it, you can reject it. And you can just be honest and say, nope, I don't want it. I don't like physical gifts. End of story. If you're not comfortable doing that, no problem. You can do the second thing. You can receive it. You can say thank you kindly, and then you can employ the third option of redistributing it. Let me find someone who would really appreciate this, and I'll give it to them. Don't try to control them, and give yourself one of those three options, and you'll solve the problem every time.
Yeah, my short answer is you just go, look at how sweet it is that they tried, right? I have a kind of a weird trigger with gifts, and it was growing up as a kid and getting horrible last minute gifts on Christmas from drunk family members, and just I'm weird with it. And so every time I've had, an ex give me something I said I didn't want or whatever, it hits harder, and I don't like it about me. But ever since I started kind of going like, oh, this is cute, even when it's a thing. So we have a family member who gets us very weird gifts, me and all of my siblings, every Christmas. And at first we were like, what is this? Like, he has money. What is he doing? And now it has become our favorite thing, where we open it at the same time to be like, what batshit crazy thing are we all about to get? And we laugh about it, and we don't even use it. And sure, it's a waste, but that moment of joy where we're just all just dumbfounded around a Christmas tree is worth it. So, you're gonna have that pang of hurt or whatever it is when you see the gift you don't want, and then you just look at them and you go, even if they didn't listen, you go, yeah, man, it's sweet that they tried.
If it brought that joy out of you, though, it turns out that it's actually not a waste.
It's brilliant, right? Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Hey, real quick, just a little Christmas analogy. Santa Claus has lots of gifts that he doesn't want. And that brings him great joy because it's not about him. An unwanted gift is an opportunity to be generous. And so many of us say, I wish I could help people more. I wish I could share more. I wish I could give more. And then we get a gift that we don't want, and we don't recognize that moment for what it is. And we say, my life is so terrible. But that's the answer to that prayer right there. It's an opportunity to be generous. Now you can bless someone for free.
Hell yeah.
My mom was an alcoholic, so we didn't leave milk and cookies for Santa. We left beer and cookies.
Also, funny story. Very similar. When I was 16, I got a 16. I got a carton of cigarettes for Christmas. And the best part was, it wasn't from my mom. It was from Santa. It was
my stars.
In my stocking. And I couldn't have been happier. That Marlboro Menthol Lights. Cheers, Santa.
We got a bunch more segments to get to, but Alabama, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hi, Josh and Ryan. This is Laura calling from Kansas City, Missouri. There's a book called I Think You're Wrong, But I'm Listening by Sarah Holland, who's a Democrat, and Beth Silvers, who's a Republican. They have a lot of tips and insight on how to have kind and respectful political discussions with people that we love but disagree with. They also have a podcast called Pantsuit Politics, where they practice what they preach in their books.
All right, real quick, right here, right now, here's one thing going on in the life of the minimalist. Jamie, I don't know if you heard about this, but we started a church without religion.
What?
Sort of.
Tell me about it.
It's not really a church. I'm just joking, but it's.
Is that why TK's here, to bring some Christ in?
Well, the funny thing is, Ryan, TK, and I all have different religious and spiritual beliefs. And Ryan and TK were talking about this, and so I just sort of jumped on board.
I've been thinking so much about this. Okay, yep.
So sometimes people, like, they lack a community, especially in a place like Los Angeles. So what we've done is we're doing these monthly events now. It's called Sunday Symposium.
Ooh.
Sundays at noon. The first one is August 28th. It sold out in like an hour. Now, there are free tickets, or you could pay to help us pay for the venue. So it was an option for either. But we're going to be doing them throughout the year. So maybe we'll get Jamie to come to one of these. He could even do some,
I'll do stand-up.
As long as it's extemporaneous.
Sure. I will improvise an entire. I will do a fully improvised set for you.
That'd be hilarious.
Or you have me and Matt Nathanson. Hear me out. He plays some guitar, and we can banter back and forth over the music, which is kind of like my music project.
That'd be hilarious.
Oh.
That'd be great. We had him open at our San Francisco show earlier this year. It was amazing. And I would love to get him to come down because we're going to have music at these events. So really what it is it's kind of like a live podcast. We do audience Q&A, but it's small. It's a Dynasty typewriter. I think you've probably been there before. Yeah. And Jamie, the owner there, he's amazing. He and his wife. And it seats 200 people. And that's it. So it's not about like filling up the 2,000 seaters or whatever. It's how do we go deep with this small crowd of people? How do we build this community? And then we do it monthly for the people who are getting value from it. The first one, we have Amanda Montell there. We have a special musical group, the Bergamot, opening up as well. TK will be there. I'll be there. Ryan will be there. And future ones, I'd love to get Jamie to come out to that as well.
100%. Yeah, community is so important. That sounds awesome. Even like people talk about community is important, and we're all divided on social media. And once you talk to people in real life, even if they disagree with you, you realize you have more in common. That's all true as well. But even if you go to one of these events, and I talk about all that stuff a lot, it's important. But even if you go to one of these events and you don't talk to anyone, I saw Fish for the first time since I was a kid very recently, and it was wild because everyone grew up. It was the same people that I saw it with, but they shaved off their dreads and they're wearing nice clothes. But then Fish comes on and they're still just like smoking weed and dancing like hippies. And it was great. And I don't think I talked to anybody that night. But being around a bunch of people who love the same thing or who have the same values, sometimes that's cathartic enough. So I am beyond hyped you guys are doing this.
We'll also be filming it. Jordan and Danny will be there. So if you're one of the true fans, VIPs on Patreon, you have access to all of our live events, including these live events. So you'll have access to that as well. So if you're not anywhere near Los Angeles and you don't want to make the trip out for it, totally understand. But get on the wait list right now, because as soon as more tickets open up, and they will, you'll want to be the first to hear about it. SundaySymposium.com. Also, I teach a writing class. It's called How to Write Better. And I share these quick little writing tips on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. We'll put a link to it. Actually, just go to howtowritebetter.org. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. You can find all the different social media channels. And so every week, I just share some writing tips. I'll do a little video of me giving you a writing tip, something you can implement in your writing right there. It's not some esoteric, make sure that you're, the conjugating your verbs approach. Yeah, we're not getting into that. Although I can give you some resources that'll help you with that if you want to learn about sentence structure. But I'm talking about something you can walk away with right now to improve your writing. You can find all the social media accounts for How to Write Better over at howtowritebetter.org. Before we get to our added value, I want to thank Jamie Kilstein for being here today. And I want to encourage you to check out his Patreon, because I am a Patreon subscriber.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I'd check out his private podcast, which is like an extended version of his public version of his podcast. But you can check him out either place, publicly or privately.
This was also me trying so hard not to curse, and I still let out some big ones. If you enjoy kind of off the rails stuff, that also the Patreon is for you.
I enjoy here's what you do on your podcast. You take your neuroses and you scatter them all over the table, and then you organize them in real time.
Isn't it wild how I can come back to it? I am very proud of that. I was on a date the other night, and she was just like, she was very similar to me and would change subjects, and I'd bring it back. And she's like, how do you bring it back like that? And I was just like, oh my God, podcasting just helped me on a date for the first time ever, where it's like I'm used to just me. I did Pete Holmes' podcast, and we were both just digressing all over the place and just being able to, circling back to this, circling back to that. You don't realize the skills you pick up from this very weird job of ours.
Speaking of Pete Holmes, Rob Bell, his friend and a friend of ours, he always says there are no tangents.
Ooh,
And
what a beautiful line.
because we talk about tangents as though it's a bad thing. Like, oh, I was on this path and then I went down this path.
Yeah.
But if you're out in nature and you take a tangent, you just say, oh, I failed.
Right.
I screwed up. No,
Well,
I just went a different direction.
Also, how beautiful is Edwards? You just said something to me that inspired me so deeply. I'm going to risk derailing an entire show because I have to get this out because I want to share it so badly with you. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, follow me on Twitter. At Jamie Kilstein.
We'll put a link to Jamie's podcast, his Patreon, and his social media in the show notes so you can follow him over there. He makes some hilarious videos on Instagram as well, at the Jamie Kilstein. For our added value this week, this is a song by an artist named Vori, and his new album is called Lost Angels, and the song is called Cindy's Interlude. And this album is one of the most toxic albums. So we've been talking about toxicity
Really?
today. What is it about toxicity that makes the most compelling music? I think it's because there's something that we feel within us.
God, I would probably date this guy. This is awful. I'm going to listen to the album. It's going to be great.
This is Cindy's Interlude from Vori. By the way, we got a bunch more surprise questions on the private podcast this week, like, how can I better organize the photo clutter on my smartphone? How do I make more time to do the things I enjoy doing? How can I use minimalism to help me stay calm during a hectic season? Plus 7 different simple living segments and a million more questions. And if you want to hear all that, visit theminimalists.com/private or click the link in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain immediate access to all of our archives, recordings of live events, weekly home tours, and our private community of thousands of open-minded minimizers like you. If you have a question or comment for our podcast, give us a call, 406-219-7839, or email a voice memo to podcast@theminimalists.com. You can follow The Minimalists on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter @The Minimalists. To get our podcast show notes in your inbox, sign up for our email list over at theminimalists.com. On behalf of Ryan Nicodemus, TK Coleman, Malabama, Podcast Sean, Jordan No More, Professor Sean, Social Jess, Danny Unknown, Post-Production Peter, Emma the Immigrant. We don't have a very minimalist team, Jamie. This is...
So many people. Get rid of them.
And the rest of our team. Big thanks. My name is Joshua Fields Milburn. If you leave here today with just one message, let it be this. Love people and use things because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.